And a courtroom in Brooklyn was packed with people today wanting to hear about organized crime. Two men, Alphonse Persico and Michael Bellino, are convicted loan sharks. Now, if the government can also convince the judge they're part of organized crime, they can get a lot of time in jail. And there was some extra excitement because one of Persico's lawyers was shot to death in his Miami office earlier this week.
Against the backdrop of an attorney who was assassinated in Miami, we had to go through security checks here at the courthouse as they searched for weapons. But the dynamite was inside the courtroom, as we heard witnesses talk about extortion, loan sharking, and other crimes. The drama began when attorney Barry Slotnick asked the judge to postpone the hearing because of the killing of Persico's attorney, George Gold, in Miami. Judge Jack Weinstein said no delay was necessary, and the testimony began. Organized crime strike force prosecutor Edward McDonald tried to show that the defendants were connected with organized crime. On the stand, Joseph Catalupo. Was he involved in organized crime? Yes, he testified. His father had a realty company, a front for Joe Colombo Sr. Did he know Joe Colombo well? Sure, he said. He knew the whole family. Joe Jr. was the best man at his wedding. He knew the whole family, blood and crime, the underbosses, captains, lieutenants, good fellows, good guys, consiglieres. He swore he knew the crime family's involvement in shylocking, extortion, hijacking, labor racketeering, the restaurants, funeral parlors, and businesses taken over because owners couldn't pay off their loans. And he swore one defendant, Michael Bellino, was active in shylocking, pushing Persico money he claimed for the Colombo family. And how the other defendant, Alphonse Persico, called Alley Boy, took over as acting boss of the family when his father, Carmine Persico, went to jail. So what's at stake here today is either a light sentence or 20 years for Alphonse Persico or Michael Bellino. That's in a narrow sense, but we've heard testimony about how organized crime operated in our area, and more importantly, how it operates even right now. Steve Powers, Channel 5 News.
And in that case, the government will have more witnesses next week. The defense will get their chance in August.
Crime family is being rounded up to stand trial for racketeering. 6 big shots in the Colombo crime family were arraigned today in New York, and charges are pending against 5 others, among them the family's top man, Carmine the Snake Persico. James Polk reports tonight this investigation still is going on.
The FBI paraded its prisoners in handcuffs. The top leadership of the Colombo organized crime family, a union leader, a Colombo captain, and the acting boss of the family, Jerry Langella, all charged in a sweeping racketeering case, one that involves extortion, loan sharking, bribery, heroin deals, the numbers racket, and union corruption. At the Staten Island Marina, the FBI set up an undercover sting operation on a yacht and secretly tape-recorded meetings with mob members. The indictment said the Colombo family controlled the concrete workers union and used that to extort payoffs from at least 10 home construction companies. And it said with control of the restaurant workers union, the mob pocketed more money from places like this cafe in a luxury Manhattan hotel. The family's top man, Carmine the Snake Persico, escaped the FBI roundup today and disappeared.
We'll get him. If he ran away, we'll get him.
Attorney General William French Smith flew to New York to announce the indictments.
Top levels of families in major cities across the country have been decimated.
The FBI has other undercover investigations of the mob still underway. An FBI official warned, "We're not done yet. There's more to come." James Polk, NBC News, New York.
Back here, the U.S. government took an enormous swat at organized crime today. The entire leadership of the infamous Colombo crime family was indicted in New York City. Those indicted were Carmine Persico, the head of the family, and 10 of his top lieutenants, all involved in what government officials describe as the General Motors of organized crime. The charges are in a 51-count federal indictment alleging racketeering, extortion, and theft, and grew out of a 3.5-year investigation of mob control of 7 unions in New York's construction and restaurant industries. Attorney General William French Smith came to New York to make the news.
The case is unique because it reveals an organized crime family's deep infiltration into major portions of this city's economy. The indictment charges that the Colombo family controls no fewer than 7 key union organizations specifically identified in the indictment, and that it thereby strongly influences both the construction and restaurant industries in this city.
He was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, and Carmine Persico, arrested with 3 others tonight in Wantagh, Long Island, has been a fugitive since October the 24th, when Operation Star Quest netted what law enforcement officials called the biggest indictment of a mafia family in history. Tonight, though, FBI officials say all they had to do was make a phone call.
An agent made the call, identified himself to the person that answered, and asked for Carmine to be placed on the phone. And without too much hesitation, he came on. Of course, he was told that the house was surrounded, that he was going nowhere, and come on out, and he did so.
Operation StarQuest began as an undercover operation, a phony pasta importing business in Little Italy. It led to spectacular charges that the Colombo family, allegedly headed by Persico, controlled the entire concrete industry in New York and several important unions in the food service and hotel businesses. And when the charges were brought, authorities were not alone in believing that Persico would quickly turn himself in.
We all thought that he'd report within a short period of time, for the simple reason that he is out on parole. And therefore, failure to report means automatic imprisonment, regardless of whether these charges are established in court and he's convicted on these charges.
I presume that when and if he finds out about this circumstance, that he will appear in court.
That was Persico's attorney the night of the indictment. This tonight. Have you any idea where your client's been for the past 4 months?
I'm not aware of what has gone on today. I've spent my entire day in court today, so I have no comment until such time as I'm notified by either the authorities or my client.
In addition to the unexpired time on his hijacking conviction and possible parole violation charges, Carmine Persico faces a maximum of 20 years on the new racketeering charge. He'll be arraigned along with the other 3 men in federal court tomorrow morning. Dave Browdy, Channel 5 News.
At this morning's hearing before a federal magistrate, Assistant U.S. Attorney Bruce Baird asked that Carmine Persico be ordered held without bail, calling it a classic case of a notorious mob boss who fled when indicted. But instead, Magistrate Leonard Bernicow granted Persico and reputed capo Dominique Montemorano a bail hearing on Thursday.
I have nothing to say other than what we said in court. I'm sorry.
In court, you told the magistrate that you reviewed the case and said that your client, there was no case against your client, there was no tape, no witnesses, and nothing to connect him with the crime, and that he was in jail at the time. Is that right?
That's what I said.
We wouldn't have indicted him, obviously. We wouldn't have asked a grand jury for an indictment unless we thought we had a very substantial case.
2 other men arrested yesterday in this Long Island home with Persico were released because of insufficient evidence. But Persico is accused not only of having violated parole on his conviction for hijacking, but of running away from bribery charges stemming from the FBI's Operation StarQuest, said to be the biggest mafia indictment in history. He and Montemorano are being held in segregated quarters at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. The magistrate denied a defense motion that would allow them to congregate with the prison population.
Well, they have a lockup so that he's in the room for some 23 hours a day, which is,
how is it
not the best way to live.
The prosecutors allege it was by bribing prison guards and receiving favors that Persico was able to maintain control of his multi-million-dollar racketeering empire while in jail.
The mere fact that someone is in prison, a person that is alleged to be an organized crime figure, doesn't by any means mean that they're not engaged in crime. I recall Ken Walton of the FBI saying that this would deal a very devastating blow to the Colombo crime family, and I believe it has dealt a very devastating blow to them. But we shouldn't fool ourselves into believing that they are not continuing to function. We just have to continue to investigate them and continue to make more and more cases.
Giuliani says that the apprehension of Persico, one of the top reputed mafia bosses in the country, was a major victory for the FBI. Chuck Curry, Channel 5 News.
Today was a hot one in the trial of the men who supposedly run the mafia, the bosses of bosses, the commission. It is the stuff that movies are made of, but today, as Frank Grimes reports, it looked more like a soap opera.
Last week, a defense attorney in the commission trial told me, come to court on Monday. It's going to be hot. This morning, Anthony Cardinal, attorney for alleged mob boss Fat Tony Salerno, agreed.
I can't wait.
Everyone interested in the commission trial knew that today was the day Carmine Jr. Persico, alleged boss of the Colombo organized crime family, who was acting as his own attorney, would cross-examine the main government witness against him. That man, FBI informant Fred DeChristopher, is related to Persico by marriage. Early in 1985, while Persico was a fugitive, he lived with DeChristopher and his family on Long Island for 3 months. That is until DeChristopher turned him in to the FBI for a reward of $50,000. In the courtroom, Persico playing the role of lawyer. DeChristopher, that of the detached government witness. Both bad actors. At times they bickered with the familiarity common only to people who have lived together. Persico, Did you threaten to kill someone over an unpaid debt? To Christopher, in Italian. Oh, menage. Holy mackerel. No. Persico, do you speak Italian? Prosecutor Chertoff. Objection. Persico, answer the question. Chertoff. Objection. Persico, his voice dripping with sarcasm, said, do you know what buppetta means? Prosecutor Chertoff jumped to his feet. Objection. Persico had just called to Christopher a meatball. The courtroom burst into laughter. At one point, defense attorney Cardinal called for a mistrial. He chided Judge Richard Owen for allowing de Christopher to call Persico Jr., his nickname. The judge told both men to try to be more formal. That didn't work for long. Persico charged that someone bought de Christopher's Long Island home for him. De Christopher, you know I bought that house. Persico, you couldn't buy socks. Again, the courtroom erupted in laughter. Throughout the 3.5-hour cross-examination, Persico attacked de Christopher by implying that de Christopher turned informer for strictly financial reasons. In closing, Persico asked, is it true you stole $200,000 hidden in your ceiling, took the $50,000 reward for turning me in, and agreed to testify for $5,500 a month so you could run away with your girlfriend and leave your family? De Christopher, no. Persico, I have no more questions. Outside, I asked Stanley Meyer, the attorney helping Persico, if he thought de Christopher's credibility was tarnished today.
Well, I'd rather not comment on that while the trial is on.
Just how successful Persico and defense attorneys will be in damaging de Christopher's credibility as a witness in the eyes of the jury won't be known until this trial is over, and that won't be for at least 2 months. Outside federal court in Manhattan, I'm Frank Grimes, Channel 5 News.
Tonight's Daily Difference, crime and punishment. The new mob war on the streets of New York. Bullets are flying and the body count is rising fast. What's at stake is control of one of this country's top crime families. Here's NBC's John Miller.
You could still hear the Christmas music coming from the house. Vincent Fasaro had been hanging a Christmas garland around the door when he was shot from behind. His wife and mother were inside the house and heard the shots. Police say Fasaro was an associate of the Colombo crime family, a New York crime family that is going through a bloody struggle for control. This is Carmine the Snake. His friends won't call him Snake, they call him Junior. But Carmine Persico was convicted of being the boss of the Colombo crime family in 1986 and was sentenced to 100 years. While Carmine waited his 100 years, Vic Arena was made the acting boss of the family. But 100 years is a long time, and the commission, the mob's board of directors, met to promote Arena from acting boss to boss of the Colombo family. This is the first time since the commission banished Joe Bonanno from New York that a boss has waged a shooting war to save his job.
Well, we haven't seen it in this proportion for some years. It looks like it's a classic mob war.
Mobsters loyal to each boss began shooting at each other on crowded city streets. Police, more accustomed to mob victims being found dumped quietly in vacant lots, began to worry.
We're very much concerned to ensure that we do not have innocent bystanders caught up into what may very well be conflict within the organized crime family.
War is a way of life in the Colombo family. Joe Colombo, for whom the family is named, rose to his position through a mob dispute. He took on a high profile when he challenged the FBI's tactics by forming the Italian-American Civil Rights League.
I have said that we are building a stairway to heaven, and this tonight places one more step on our way to God.
Colombo got an elevator. His high profile caused rival mob bosses to okay his murder at one of the League's rallies. The Colombos in this latest war have lived up to their old nickname, the gang that couldn't shoot straight. In at least 3 incidents, they've managed to shoot people they weren't aiming at. Finally, in a case of mistaken identity, they murdered an 18-year-old counterboy at a bagel shop owned by 2 Colombo hoods. The Brooklyn district attorney said enough was enough.
Some people would have you believe it's okay if they shoot each other. It's not okay.
Mob war. They call it going to the mattresses from the old days when gangsters used to sleep in makeshift dormitories, guns at the ready, until the war was over. Well, now the Colombos have gone to the mattresses, and before this war is over, someone will emerge as boss, but not before there's more shooting. John Miller, NBC News, New York.